Here is our setup. Nice Victorian style, old-fashioned house here. Some other houses down the lane. There's another house in the foreground. And here's our favorite, Chinese gardener, Chinese philosopher. Your choice. He's in the foreground. So foreground, middle ground, and in the background, look, there's a nice Art Deco hotel complex, or apartment complex. It's in its place in the background. And our point of view reverses from foreground, middle ground, background, middle ground, foreground here. If you notice, our hotel or apartment in the background is in its proper place. We assume it's just life size. Especially if I zoom in. Very nice. I'll take that apartment in the upper right-hand floor there. Curved bay window. Whoops. Now if I pull back, it's in its proper place. It's our point of view. Foreground, middle ground, and background. Now if I go way up in the sky, you'll see what our setup is. Not quite as interesting. My point being, we have reversed things. I have put the apartment way up here in the foreground. I still like that apartment up there in the upper right now, but I pulled back. Now look. He's completely out of scale now with the rest of the setup. It looks like a miniature that somehow got in there. The one the kids might have built, as a school project. And our Chinese friend, our Asian friend in the background, now he's out of scale unless we assume it's a large statue in the background, but everything's out of sync. Our visual memory tells us, as we did before, things should be in their proper placement within our picture plane. Scale is very important. Once again, I have rearranged our figures and our buildings, and now as a little low angle here, a low angle point of view, our apartment buildings in the background are back in scale. We assume the normal height if we were to walk that far. So foreground, our other house in the middle ground, and apartment complex in the background. Everything is in proper scale now. It is not out of joint, so to speak. A little Shakespeare in there. The time is out of joint. Visuals were out of joint, but now they're in proper perspective. Thank you. Only if we put them in proportion here, close up, do the apartments in the background kind of make sense that they're way in the back behind them in the background. Let's look at our setup here. A higher angle, you can see what our setup is. Now, let's take them away from the foreground, and they're going to advance toward us, and suddenly the homes in the background seem to be in proper proportion. They're away from them. It just looks correct. Our visual memories are working for us. It's an illusion of space. Foreground, middle ground, and background. Here, even better. Thanks a lot. Now this handsome Asian aristocratic Asian couple are thinking of moving into the neighborhood. They're walking away from it, actually. Now, in the background, you can see everything's in scale with their large images in the foreground. Now, let's backtrack and put them closer to our foreground. Not so good. They're out of proportion to the homes in the foreground. The apartment building in the background kind of works for us. Now, let's place them even closer to the foreground. We're starting with a close-up of the Highland Park Diner. And we're going to zoom back, pull back. We're going to go in, we're going to pull back. My goodness. Now, again, these buildings in the foreground and the smaller buildings receding in the plains in the background. I'll correct that. Now, if I'm going to walk out of this building and go down to have a snack at the diner, I'll go back by these other buildings, see, and I can even park my car in the front there. Everything seems to be in correct scale here. Let's see what our setup is. You see, that actually is smaller. I guess I know we could call that forced perspective. The middle ground and the diner in the background. Notice the size of the cars. We're going to pull back, background, middle ground, foreground. Objects get smaller as they recede in perspective. Now, excuse me, we'll put our car in here. We know this car in the foreground. We know the cars in the background are the same size as this car in the foreground. Our visual memory. Now, if we take our car, it's not a new one, I know, but for illustrate. Now, I put it here in the foreground. It seems to make sense. It's in proportion to the buildings in the background. I'm going to go back there. You see that diner way back there? Now, those cars are the same size as the ones in the foreground. We know that. This car in the foreground, we know that. Ooh, it's like a Bentley. We know that from visual experience. If we walk to that diner, that we know those cars are the same size as this car in the foreground. Yeah. If we put it back here again, it's a little oversized. Thank you.